That's all I have to say, and now Scott's going to introduce Dr. Slade, and we'll get on the program. Is it okay to announce one of our speakers? Sexos. Sure. You can do anything you want, sure. Yeah. You're going to turn that on?
I hit the record.
Oh, you did? Okay.
Yeah, I'm just careful. Nobody knows about this except for you all now. But Bill Saxonis, an international expert on Duke Ellington, will be giving one of the courses. And if you listen to Bill McCann's show on Saturday from, I think it's 8 to noon, or he reruns it on Sunday, you'll have Bill on next. I'm sure, I don't remember if it's the first or the second Saturday, and he'll talk about more things than you ever wanted to know about that famous jazz band. Well, so good to see you. Dr. Leonard A. Slade Jr. is our speaker today. Professor Slade is past chair and past professor of Africana Studies, adjunct professor of English, past director of the Humanistic Studies doctoral program, and of the Master of Arts in Liberal Studies program at UAlbany. Among so many honors, he's the recipient of the President's Excellence in Teaching Award, a Collins Fellow, and a Citizen Academic Laureate. He's published 27 books, 23 wonderful books on poetry. April is National Poetry Month, and he's here today to share his smile, his lilting voice, and a brief review. Review is important, brief's not important. You can go as long as you want. Of the life and selected poems of his longtime friend, Nikki Giovanni. In 2019, the Writers Institute hosted an event that returned Nikki Giovanni to campus to celebrate the 50th anniversary of UAlbany's Department of Africana Studies. At that time, they wrote, this visit came upon publication of Nikki's latest book, A Good Cry, When We All Learn from Tears and Laughter, her memoir about joys and the perils of aging, the people who have given her life meaning, the poets and thinkers who influenced her, and the students who gave her life purpose. And Nikki Giovanni gave the world so much more. Today, our fellow Emeriti is here to celebrate Nikki Giovanni and National Poetry Month and the wonders of spring here at UAlbany. I don't want to talk anymore in front of Dr. Slade. I'm going to go back and work the microphone. I give you Dr. Slade.
Thank you so much, Scott. Kind introduction. And I want to thank all of you profusely for coming today. You have prolonged my life. I love getting my flowers while I live. That's so important to me. And you have demonstrated it again. Some of you have been here before to hear me. And so thank you for returning. Thank the faculty and staff and students and friends of our great university for supporting modest writing. Nikki Giovanni was born in Nashville, Tennessee in 1943. Can you hear me all right? In the back? It's okay? All right. She grew up in Cincinnati, Ohio, which for a long time she considered her permanent home. She entered Fisk University in 1959, where she studied under John Killens, a very famous Black writer who was on the faculty there. And Fisk University, of course, as many of us know, is the alma mater of John Hope Franklin, and the great historian, author of From Slavery to Freedom. He himself, a graduate of Fisk, earned the bachelor's degree from Fisk and earned the master's degree and Doctor of Philosophy degree from Harvard University. W.B. Du Bois also earned the bachelor's degree from this university and was the first Black to earn the PhD degree from Harvard. He would teach at Wilberforce University in Ohio and Atlanta University in Georgia. He's best known, as we know, for the souls of Black folk. Moved to Ghana in his last years, where he died in 1963. And I visited his grave when I did postdoctoral study at the University of Ghana. By the way, I received a certificate for my postdoctoral study in East Africa in the mid-1970s. But John Hope Franklin would also be a professor, and he would teach at North Carolina College, now North Carolina Central University, Brooklyn College, where he was chair of the history department, and at the University of Chicago, where he was chair of the history department, and then Duke University, where he was a distinguished professor of history. He received an honorary doctorate from many universities, including my alma mater, Elizabeth City State University. Got that on the day that he delivered the commencement address. And I think my alma mater felt sorry for me. They invited me back on the day of his commencement and also gave little old me an honorary doctorate with John Hope Franklin. I felt so embarrassed and unworthy of that honor. But John Hope Franklin, W.B. Du Bois, and so many others who finished Fisk, who were well trained in the liberal arts, humanities, fine arts and humanities in particular, but they had a global education. I don't want to romanticize Giovanni. Yeah, that's a veracity to the truth. After all, it was Keats who said, "Beauty's truth, truth, beauty." In Spain, deluding joy is a thing, but beauty is a joy forever. Truth is that when Nikki was at Fisk as a student, she was dismissed from this excellent historically Black university. But she did return to earn her bachelor's degree from Fisk. Some academicians still believe that Fisk University still has a rigorous academic program, and that it was considered very, very conservative. And John Hope Franklin and W.B. Du Bois, others graduated long ago, and it was conservative when Nikki Giovanni was there because she was kicked out because of her activism. She became an activist at Fisk and commenced writing good poetry. That's where she studied under Keats and Wordsworth and Shelley and Emily Dickinson and Langston Hughes and James Weldon Johnson and Gwendolyn Brooks and many other writers. She taught English in New York in a SIG program and promoted, and this is what I loved about her, she promoted the writing of other authors. That was very important. In 1967, Nikki Giovanni organized the first Black Arts Festival in Cincinnati, and then established the Black New Theater. Her first books were Black Feeling, Black Talk, and Black Judgment and Recreation. She then edited an anthology of Black female writers, Night Comes Softly. She continued to write in journals, in magazines, in learned journals. She taught writing also at Rutgers University. See, that's what can happen to you when you continue to write and publish. That's so important. And it was my wife who, as an aside here, got me to writing poetry in 1985 because she saw some potential here. She said, well, here at the University of Chicago, where I'm doing my graduate work, I went to hear some of the poets. Your poetry is better than their poetry. I said, and so you need to start writing poetry. I did, and the rest is history. She would critique it, and if she thought it was good poetry, she said, all right, get down and published. But if she thought it was bad poetry, she said, you need to put that poem in the trash. And start over. She was my meanest critic, but that was a good thing, wasn't it? Because I continued to grow, and I first got published in journals, magazines, and newspapers the way Nikki Giovanni did. She influenced me. I'll get to that in a minute. But she was considered by many, and Samuel says this, one of the most powerful writers in the Black arts movement and similar. And she writes and writes and writes until her death on a variety of subjects with a deeper sensitivity and complexity. And she had that gift for being able to connect with young people. They could relate to her poetry, to her truth, that keeps talking about beauty is truth, beauty. They connected with her. Now, I first met Nikki Giovanni at the University of Illinois at Urbana-Champaign, where I was working on my doctorate in English in 1971. That's where I first heard her. Her commentary was vulgar, vain, nasty. Some of us in the audience were shocked. Some laughed and some didn't know what to do. She made us feel very uncomfortable, but she was telling the truth. But she used that kind of language. Oh, she was an activist then, right, from the Black arts movement. She has in her poetry, but we all got over, by the way, the vulgarities. The rest of it, we got over it. But that's the nature of some poets' writings. They misuse that kind of language. And I don't personally believe in using it in my poetry. If it means I will not get rich, I just won't get rich, that's all. But Nikki believed in what she was doing. She was giving us a realistic portrayal of Black life and conditions. This is the world. And she was trying to evaluate our communities and the ghetto and so forth. She has soul-talking of poetry, Black dialect, harsh and violent and nasty language, and rhythms of Black speech and oratory, use of the historic past as a frame of reference, figures of speech, metaphors, similes, hyperboles, synecdoche, metonymy, onomatopoeia, Zimmerman, litote, and the like. She uses all of them, especially the hyperbole, the exaggeration of the poet and the metaphors. Oh, she's a powerful writer. She gives us also conflict between cultures as a theme, and portrayal of racial hatred and violence, protest and anger she has against all racial injustice. I have been, as I said, influenced by her writings. And I'll give you a sample of my own few poems to let you see how they compare. At the end but I don't use that vulgarity that she uses. She herself, of course, toned down her writing that's vulgar language as years passed. In the 1970s in particular, because it was Gwendolyn Brooks, the first Black to get the Pulitzer Prize for Poetry in the early 1950s, who, I am told, called her to the side and said, you don't need to go to the extreme in using this kind of language to objectify your ideas. You will find that your invitations to read your poetry will be reduced, and very few people will be inviting you. And she listened to one of the books, and she had modeled some of her own writings out with the books. And so she stopped doing that for a while, but Nika was back at it again, as we know. When I first invited her to speak at Kentucky State University, and I had the doctorate in 1972, when I heard him say, I invited her to speak. She didn't use that language before this diverse audience, 13 of mine, very professional, and students, faculty, staff, people in the community loved her reading. And so I said, I'm so glad. I'm very relieved. I'm Sunday finalists for getting always recommend that certain people be put in. And I invited her a second time, and she was very professional, and she toned it down. She writes in free verse, and some of this written an exegesis of her very fine poem called Nika Rosa. That's one of my favorites. Nikki Rosa, R-O-S-A. My favorite line in that poem is, Black love is Black wealth. I don't like that because in the poem, she says, yes, she was from a secure family with happiness. They didn't have much, they were actually poor people. She had a poor family, she said, and she describes poverty. But she said, we had one powerful thing that sustained us, and I'm paraphrasing. We had love for one another, and that sustained us. And so it's ordinary fiction that needs to understand accessible. When I used to teach African American literature class, my African American poetry class, I would start with that poem by her, Nikki Rosa, and some other poems, but that was one of my favorites. It's written in ordinary diction and conversational rhythms. She wrote another one called Adulthood, and autobiographical poem with Giovanni coming of age, trying to find herself, searching for her identity. All of us went through that, didn't we, as teenagers, when we were in our 20s and 30s and so forth. She had this quest for identity. And so she says she immersed in the lives of others, quote, quoting her, not a new life through submission in the lives of others, not like her image. She tried to adjust to assimilation. Some people she thought had false values, and she thought some were pseudo-intellectuals, that's pseudo-intellectualism. Some were comfortable in their world of abstraction and glittering generalities. And she felt powerless to do something about it. And so at this, she found a way She said, to be read. She said, well, this is not Bible. She said, I found a way, quote, to be read, unquote. That is not a withdrawal, a consciousness of her Black identity and creative expression of it. She finds, quote again, a degree, she says, of happiness in her new identity as a Black activist. It's on a calling, going to change the world. But she's very bitter in the moment. And she's not for real, it appears. No, she says she's in pain. She's had a quest for this identity. We feel her pain, and that's why she was such a great writer. She could connect with all of us because we felt her pain. We had empathy for her. Right? Yes. We feel the need to do something about the problems that she's defined in her poetry. That's why young people, when we had her here last time, New York State Writers Institute brought her, and the Department of African Studies co-sponsored her, and I recommended her very strongly, and I took $1,000 out of my pocket to help bring her back. Didn't mind doing it at all. Contributed to the New York State Writers Institute. My friend Paul Wanda opened his eyes and said, oh yes, and then we've got to bring her back if you want to donate that kind of money. He was happy to get it and helped his budget. You see, but it was worth it. And I don't know, I sense that she was getting older, and as we get older, we don't know how long we're going to live, do we? Oh, I thank God that we brought her back because, and I invited our great president, Rodriguez, and his secretary called and said that he had another engagement, he could not make it. And I sent a friendly letter to President Rodriguez, one of the best presidents ever for an effort for 10 in all. That's quite a few presidents in my 55 years of university teaching. I wrote a personal letter to him in writing. I didn't type it. I said, Mr. President, you need to be at this event. I said, the auditorium will be back. The campus at a ball. And I would like for you to give the welcome. Is there any way, please, that you could change your schedule and be present to hear this famous poet? You need to be there. I said, you're doing it not for me, not for the department. You're doing it for our great university. And your presence will mean so much to the students, people from the community. And I just went on like that, telling him why he needed to be there. I received a call from the Secretary of State. President Rodriguez said that he's going to cancel his program, one of his programs, and he will be present to hear Nicky Giovanni, and you can put him down to give the welcome. Oh, I was so grateful. And I think President Rodriguez was so happy that he attended the event. She met him, he met her, he loved her. He didn't have a problem with her poetry. The ballroom, did any of you go to hear in Wisconsin? The ballroom was packed. Am I exaggerating? What? 600 people, I was told, were there. And the president gave a beautiful welcome. I had to introduce her. Paul Wendell gave remarks, and now she's gone, don't you see? But she's in the history books for having read her poetry at the University at Albany. That's a good thing. That can be put in archives. She's proud to be a Black woman. She wrote a poem called Woman Poem. She's unhappy in this poem. She goes back to her childhood. Father is incompetent in caring for her, caring for his whole family, is unhappy. A woman, she thinks, can't find a fulfilling job, but she can tell. A woman is unhappy sexually. Unhappy if she has no sex or love, or she quotes, if you are pretty, still unhappy. She has to accept everyone else's love and respect, esteem. She is in the end of this woman, disgusted with herself as a Black woman, of self-esteem. But she holds on, she says, to unhappiness. It's all right. Quote, cause it's the only thing, real thing. I know. Owen Hudson said this, quote, sorrow is the only faithful one, is the blues expression of unconsciousness. So like that. But she wrote another one, and she continues to write. It's therapeutic for her, don't you see? She heals. She grows. She develops as a writer. She evaluates her experiences. She gives us a realistic portrayal of life and all of its vicissitudes. One of her very popular poems, it's one of my favorites too. Beautiful Black men. Beautiful Black men. She says on their afros and everything she loves about them. Now, my grandmother, who's deceased now, had a problem with afros in the 1960s. She told me when I visited her, I was at Kentucky State, but I went home to visit my family, my parents, grandmother. She said, Junior, she said, you look like somebody. I said, well, thank you, grandmother. She said, you don't have that afro. And I told the children and grandchildren, all of you should be ashamed of yourselves wearing that long hair. I was conservative, didn't have that much anyway. So I held on to my hair.
So you had an afro?
No, I refused to get it. That's what my grandmother loved about me.
Oh.
That I didn't have, I did not have that afro. She said, you look like somebody. She was conservative in other words. Old school, I don't know, call it what you. She just, and even my parents got an afro to connect with the children and grandchildren. Right? It was in vogue in the 60s and 70s and 80s, right? And some people now have the afro, but I say to each his own. Right? But Nikki just loved her Black men who had afros and who had a certain walk, right? They were beautiful, she thought, and she loved them for what they were. Now, she wrote another poem called Revolutionary Music and Cotton Candy on a Rainy Day. That's one of my favorite books of her, Cotton Candy on a Rainy Day. And some people say that's one of her best books. It's one of my favorites. She spoke twice for us, as I said, at Kentucky State, read from different works, and she came here the second time. First time, she was fine, but she brought that activism here. I said she was fine. I don't know. The New York State Writers Institute brought her here. I recommended her. Tom Smith was director of the institute then, we remember him. And he was so generous and kind. And we just co-sponsored her. And Nikki then just appeared to be, I don't know, in the 1990s sometimes, very angry. I don't know whether she was tired of it, even to me, hostile and distant. And I couldn't figure out what was wrong, and I had to show her around. We won Voice of America, and boy, did I said, "Oh my goodness, we won Voice of America." I didn't know what it had nothing to do with it, but I think Tom Smith did. And so when Nikki learned of that, she toned it down. She could use the vocabulary that she used the second time she came. She toned it down and gave a lot of commentary. It was a little preachy. And read probably 2 poems at the end. That was it. Well, I accompanied her out of the recital hall, and the place was packed. And our activist students could not wait to get to her. And they commenced arguing with her, fussing with her. Why didn't you read this poem? Why didn't you read that poem? And what you said is, it's not going far enough. And I couldn't get everything that they said, but they were displeased because she did not display that activism, don't you see? And we left them and finally got her away from them. And she hung down, but bus all the way to dinner. I took her to Burger King for dinner. Burger King. She had been cold and aloof. That was vindictive of me. Fought to get you here. I didn't think she was very nice to me. She was not professional, not cordial. But she could have been very tired, don't you see? It could have been in many reasons, but she cooked up after she got her double cheese sandwich and she was much better.
What year was that?
That was about 1992, something like that, about 1992, because I had just arrived in 1988. But I brought Gwendolyn Brooks here first. Yeah, I never shall forget that. I recommended her to the New York State Writers Institute. She came first about 1989, 90. And then we brought Nikki Giovanni about 92, 93. You can find it on the New York State Writers Institute, the exact date, and I was trying to be Ralph Bunch, the ambassador of goodwill and the peacemaker, a very fine critic. His name was Wilfred Samuels, edited this excellent Wilfred D. Samuels called Encyclopedia of African American Literature. I love this book because I think Samuels is very objective in his criticism of writers' works. He writes that Giovanni challenges the Black intellectuals who seek comfort in the academy to become more involved in the Black liberation struggle. It's true, that's what she wrote about. And he told the truth, and she told the truth. Some of us didn't believe in getting involved in the movement. I came to Albany. I demonstrated on the police department, things they were doing in Albany. Some students did. And guess who persuaded me to get out there and demonstrate? Daddy, you gotta demonstrate with us. My daughter, Benicia Elizabeth Slade, who died December 28, 2024. She was an activist, you know. And I was out there with her. I was in college, my freshman year. Yes, Greensboro gets the credit for students demonstrating Woolworth, Greensboro, 1959. And they have pictures in history books, but we were at the opposite end of the state demonstrating at Woolworth too at the lunch counters. Leonard, Slade, Jr. among them. You see, trying to help make the world a better place, protesting injustice, inequality, and what have you. And so, Nikki is telling the truth here. But I believed in demonstrating peacefully now. About this rioting and fighting, what have you. Giovanni was University Distinguished Professor of English at Virginia Tech in Blacksburg, Virginia. And when she died, she was retired. And she continues, even in death, to chronicle African American history. She pays homage to Black leaders and celebrates Black cultures. She demonstrates great pride and love for human beings in her writing. Oh, she's a different person in her last years. And Giovanni, at times in her poetry, desires to retreat into domestic comforts in the face of a disappointing world. She wrote a poem called My House, and I think Maury Evans, in her book, Black Women Writers, 1950 1980, also gives a very objective evaluation of her works. Maury Evans, by the way, taught here for one semester before I came under Dr. Vivian Boyd, who was chair at the time. Dr. Gordon brought her. Oh, she was an activist, but what a fine, she's dead now, but what a fine book she has here that she edited of Black women writers. Maury Evans herself writes an article, and she has written about different authors in the book. Have written about Maya Angelou, Gwendolyn Brooks, Alice Childress, Lucille Clifton, Nick Giovanni, Gail Jones, wife's homegirl from Lexington, Kentucky, Audre Lorde, Paula Marshall, Tony Morris, Carl Rogers, Cindy Sanchez, housework of Michael Walker, and others. With objective criticism, I think. The theme in the poem My House is interesting. She needs, all of us need, confidence in her new role. As we assume new roles in life, don't we get insecure? I did. I was nervous when I came to Southern Albany to chair African Studies. I know about the problems we had in the department, but I believed, and I depended on my personal God to help me turn it around. The faculty, the staff, the students, and I believe in loving everybody, and that's the way it was. Everybody could see that, love everybody. That's beautiful, right? Love, says Shakespeare, conquers all. And when the faculty found out that I loved them and I respected them, and I expected them to love me and respect me and to do what they were hired to do, teach wisely and well these students. Then they followed me and supported me, and I appreciate it. And I think we made some changes, don't you, Marissa? Marissa is a witness. She worked for EOP for a long time and was the very be the president of EOP. Oh, she was the director. She needs confidence, and later she will thus, and all of us need this, take a break. Domestically, take a domestic break and celebrate a domestic break more quietly and convincingly. And then the poem Winter, Cotton Candy, that's favorite. She observes, she says, and I love these lines, frogs bury the mud, snails bury themselves, and I air my quilts, preparing for the cold. Bears store fat chipmunks, gather nuts, and I collect books for the coming winter. Isn't that nice poetry? I think that's beautiful, simple, accessible, easy to understand. In Cotton Candy on a Rainy Day, love has failed her in times. She notes, and I would quote, the back of what I have to say, what this decade will be known for, there is no doubt. It is loneliness. And in the same when she continues, if loneliness were a grape, the wine would be vintage. If I were a wood, the furniture would be mahogany. But since it is life, it is cotton candy on a rainy day. The sweet, soft essence of possibility. Never quite, but sure rain. I am cotton candy on a rainy day. Unrealized to dream of an idea unborn. Is that a beautiful poem? Beautiful poem, that's good stuff. So cotton candy is, one critic has said, Giovanni's, yes, bleakest poem, but it reflects the failure of both revolution and love in the late 70s. Possibility has become stillborn success. And she becomes, as time passes, a more charming poet as she ages. And I witnessed that the second time she came here. She was nice and friendly. But you saw her hugging me. I thought, my goodness, I didn't know she was gonna hug me after she came off stage. She was so great.
She forgave you for Burger King.
I'm sorry.
She forgave you for Burger King.
Oh, all right. Yeah, good point. She forgave me for Burger King. But she knew how hard we had worked, and we rolled out the red carpet for it. Dr. Oscar Williams, who's since deceased, was the chauffeur for her, gave her royal treatment. She loved his big car, and she was so comfortable. She felt like the queen in his car, and he was on time. And I insisted on her starting on time. I said, Dr. Giovanni, you know, she had a few honorary doctors, one from the University of Maryland, I remember. And she looked at me and she thought we were going to start late. You know, she was there talking to students, trying to autograph. And I said, excuse me, it's time to get started 5 minutes up. We said, and I went to the stage. I said, President was there. I said, it's 7 o'clock, good evening. It's time for this program to start. President Rodriguez, so this is one, she knew I'm in business, and we wanted to give her plenty of time to read and comment. It was her moment of glory.
So
And to have a message to the students.
what year was that again? The second?
I would say that was about 5 years ago. We just said the rest of it.
2019.
Like 2019, yeah, a few years, yeah, 2019 to be exact. Thank you. She becomes also, I thought, she's a sweet person. We had great dinner for her and London. Oh, we did soul food and people were there and the Deltas celebrated her. And I thought she's a Delta, honorary Delta. And she really appreciated it. She came honest as time passed. A person still searching though, still searching, still complex, still a little lusty, still individualistic. Nick was going to do it her way. Now, I must admit something to you. Some people in the community had a problem with her plain language, and they protested to me privately, but I'm not calling names. But I said, this is an academic institution. We believe in academic freedom. And I'm not going to tell what to say, how to say it. She's a poet, and she's free to do it, as Frank Sinatra used to say, her way. Frank Sinatra used to say, I did it my way. I wanted Nikki to do it her way. And I did back when we invited a president, Leroy Jones, made Baraka in Kentucky State, all newspapers all upset in Kentucky. You are inviting a Marxist to the Kentucky Book Fair and to the university to speak. I said, yes, this is an academic institution. I said, I'm not a Marxist. I said, but when he comes to speak, we can question him about his philosophy, about this Marxism. And that's what happened. We questioned him. Got him in a corner, and he had to remind them because some didn't know. He said, to one lady, don't you understand? I'm a Marxist. She said, oh, she backed off. Oh, okay. All of us got over it, and they accepted Barack Obama. At the book fair, I never would censor a speaker. I never would tell Ralph Ellison what to say, the author of The Invisible Man. He had spoken here before I came. We had him in Kentucky State. I invited him, picked him up at the airport. He did it his way, don't you see? Lamont Bennett, his way. Am I right on this? I had to read my poetry at church yesterday. I did it my way after church. And I gave it my all in Carmichael Hall at the coffee and hall. Black men, she said, I just want to say, just gotta say, she repeats something about those beautiful, beautiful out of sight black men, those black men with afros walking down the street has the same danger, but a brand new pleasure. She just loves her black men as I say. But her favorite poem is for many people, the ego tripping poem. Ego tripping. Some say it's grounded in the Black vernacular, that's true, featuring her delightful egotism. Now, some writers have an ego, don't they? Some of us are egotistical. Not all, but some. She says, I was born in the Congo in this word, ego trip. I walked to the Fertile Crescent and built the Sphinx. I designed the pyramid so tough that a star only glows every 100 years, falls into the center, giving divine perfect light. I am bad. It's egotistical in there, right? The hyperbole, the exaggeration, right? But what a woman that is. She's black and proud, a magnificent woman, black woman, whose mere gaze can burn out and she says in the poem, a Sahara desert and whose casual blowing of her nose can provide oil for the entire Arab world. And the word Dick Giovanna is bad. He says, I'm bad. This is a racial kind of jubilee. She believes. One critic has said that Nikki Giovanni, and I want to be fair, I don't want to romanticize it too much. Just want to speak the truth and share with you what not just Slade sees in the poetry, but what other critics have said. One critic has said that Giovanni is a frustrating poet. Frustrating poet. She clearly has, this bothered me when I read it, but I said I have to report it to the faculty Emeritus. I distinguished the faculty Emeritus. They want to know the whole truth and nothing but the truth, right? Yeah. This is what the critic said. She clearly has talent that she refuses to discipline. That's what the critic said. Now, when you become a writer, you have to be prepared for the good criticism and the bad criticism. I'll give you an example of something that happened to me. I wrote a poem called The Anniversary, about the greed of Black preachers, which was really about in Kentucky. I wrote this. And my mother-in-law's brother told her to tell me if Leonard comes to Transylvania University, I was here then, to read that poem. If he reads that poem called The Anniversary, I am going to whip his posterior. That was not the word she used. Preacher said that he saw something in that poem about himself. And it is true that we have, not just the preachers, but we have too many people who are greedy. They're never satisfied, right? And it's all about them. And they have to have an anniversary every year, and from poor people. And I just got tired of hearing about it. I said, I'm going to write about this. And I submitted that poem to the Black Scholar, and guess what? They couldn't wait to publish it because it was the truth. Now, when I went to Transylvania to read, I was invited to read there, very fine liberal arts school. I decided not to read. I did not want to perform karate on a preacher. But my mother-in-law said, no, Leonard writes about experiences growing up in North Carolina. So that's where it's coming from. It was not about you and your family. But she called me to share the news about him. And she said, do you love me? That's where she started. I said, you know, I love you, mother-in-law. Well, I hope so, because I took up for you today. And she laughed and laughed and laughed because her brother took it personally. But we made up, and then we were still friends. I had no idea that he would respond that way, and even in Albany, Dean Putnam, the cathedral, he's dead now, I guess I can speak, cornered me. She said, were you talking about me in that poem, The Anniversary? I said, Dean Putnam, I wrote that poem in Kentucky, I didn't know you. He saw himself in the poem. I was writing the truth. The truth is the what it says. And so she says, this week that she must keep on trying to get better as a writer. She just does not try hard enough. That's what the critic said about Nikki Giovanni. She just doesn't try hard enough. And she declares, Nikki Giovanni, I'm writing a poem about my habits, which it's not a great poem, it's mine. She admits that she has some poems that are not great. Well, I have some that are not great. read them and reread. I thought, goodness, this is terrible. And why did I? Here they are, in case you want to buy some on Amazon. Slade poems, right? Lilacs in Spring, Pure Light, my first book, Another Black Voice, different drama. I too am America, the next one, and the book by the State University of New York Press, Sweet Solitude. I value them. But that goes with the territory, don't you think? We must take the bitter with the sweet after we become writers and not be too sensitive. And I was able to take it. And I wanted to continue to grow as well. Now, Giovanni believed that personality is not enough, is not a substitute for realizedness. She has written, as I said earlier, about the contemporary world. And one critic has said, she can be a good poet. She can really be a good poet. Well, that's the way it is with all of us. Some of us, nice to hear is wrote some fine poems, excellent poems. And then there's some I don't care too much about that I consider bad poems. But her work is unrealized abstraction, flabby at that, said the critic. Too much poetic fantasy posing as poetry, and too many moments of sentimentality in her poems, said this professional critic. That was mean, wasn't it? That was mean. But the critic admits naked is one, and then the critic admits, trying to soften it up a little bit. Nikki is one of the most talented writers to come out of the Black 60s. She had to give her credit for that. That's a fact. She's one of the best of the 1960s. Giovanni must now overcome her self-indulgence. She has the talent to create good. Perhaps in poetry, if only she has the will to discipline her craft, said another book critic. I said that Nikki Giovanni was influenced by the masterful poet Leonard Brooks, who wrote Gwendolyn Brooks, who was the first Black to get the Pulitzer Prize in poetry in the 1950s. Excuse me. And I want to give a sampling of her poetry, and you compare and contrast the two. She attempts, Nikki, to write like Gwendolyn Brooks. She tries to emulate Gwendolyn Brooks. Here's one about abortion, the mother, she calls it. Gwendolyn Brooks, a person that we invited her here twice, Sunday Hallway. I invited her as Kentucky State twice. And we gave her the University of Albany an honorary doctorate. And she was so grateful. We were the only SUNY school in the 6th floor campuses to give her an honorary doctorate. And that touched her heart. She was grateful for it. I had her twice at Kentucky State, had her twice, and I heard her first at the University of Illinois, Urbana-Champaign, right? And I love Nikki and Gwendolyn Brooks. Maya Angelou, his lecture. They all gave me positive blurbs for my Mark's books of poetry. Anybody who helps me, I'm loyal for life. But I try to be objective and tell the truth. The mother of Gwendolyn Brooks, listen to this narrative. Abortions will not let you forget. You remember the children you got that you did not get. the damp, small pups with a little or with no hair, the singers and workers that never handle the hair, you will never neglect or beat them or silence a by with a sweet. You will never wind up the second thumb or scuttle off ghosts that come. You will never leave them controlling your luscious side, return for a snack of them with godly mother eye. I have heard in the voices of the wind, the voices of my dim killed children. I have contracted. I have eased my dim dears at the breast. They could never suck. I have said, sweets, if I sin, if I seized your luck and your lives from your unfinished reach, if I stole your births and your names, your straight baby tears and your games, your stilted or lovely loves, your tumults, your marriages, aches, and your deaths. If I poison the beginnings of your breaths, believe that even in my deliberateness I was not deliberate, though why should I whine that the crime was other than mine, since anyhow you are dead, or rather, or instead you were never made, but that too, I am afraid, is faulty. Oh, what shall I say? How is the truth to be said? You were born, you had body, you died. It is just that you never giggled or planned or cried. Believe me, I loved you all. Believe me, I knew you, though, faintly, and I love you all. Is that a beautiful thing? It's a powerful thing. It's a small window. Nikki Giovanni had put in the books to mentor her, to guide her. It fits her. I know it's getting late, but let's see. I don't know. I just want to give these are somewhat lengthy by that gives you an idea of the nature of Brooks poetry. And I did want to give you a sample of how Nick Giovanni and Brooks influenced me. Here's an example of a professor whom I admired. He was my mentor for 50 years. He was my graduate school director at the University of Illinois, Urbana-Champaign, the station director, Dr. George Hendrick. I love that man. My mentor, even after I left Illinois. He moved after his wife died, Illinois. He moved with his daughter, Sarah, her husband, 2 children, to Stony Brook University, where Dr. Hendrick became a university professor, research professor. And we stayed in touch, and I brought him here twice to speak. I wrote a poem for him. He was so great. He died just 2 or 3 years ago. It's called His Professor, and tell me whether or not you think I am using blank verse, free verse, trying to emulate Nikki and whatever books, and Langston Hughes. They were my favorites. Emily Dickinson, my favorite. His hair silk from rich years. His teachings, quiet words I observed, his slow walk, his humped shoulders and head bowed, his breath short. The book's grasp as if gold under his arms, resting on yellow notes. Published articles, pupils, poems, rhythm, performing symbols. Students learn his labels and whispers, almost gone. He gave a Department of African Studies unsolicited. And Dr. Williams was the chair. Gave our department $10,000 for scholarships for students. Was that generous or what? He didn't have to give us a dime. He was so grateful. I have to read, if I may, just a couple of them. Before the death of Dad, and as I said, I believe in what Poe believed that poetry is the rhythmical creation of beauty whose purpose was to elevate the soul. Said Lysa Hughes is the human soul entire, squeezed like a lemon or a lime, drop by drop, into atomic words. Oh, so true, this they said. And what when the book said, poetry is the distillation of human experience, light distilled. Light distilled, and what other voices said about poetry, what it is. Spontaneous overflow of our feelings recollected in tranquility, said William Mercer. It's about feelings. Nick Giovanni made us feel something. And I'm still trying to make people feel something. Here's one called Before the Death of Dad. Before maggots suck your marble eyes, before bones yield to a hollow earth, inviting black meat to heap cold blood, I will tell you of the dark days of youth, of the tears soaking white pillows of your house, inflicting severe pain. I still love you, the eldest child, your lost sheep destined to lead. I touch you in your white casket when I, nearly 40, still hunger for your laughter. And ate the hunted birds. Open your eyes in church. Hear the voice of your son. Plant me again in my mother's womb. Is that a poem about feeling? Yeah, the spontaneous overflow of feelings recollected in tranquility. Two ones, then I'm finished. Questions asked to me over the years, inspired by women books, because they're writing. Questions asked me by a preacher. Is it true? Just how did you get to go to college? By a former professor. Just how did you get to read your poetry at Harvard? By this university alumni. Just how did you get to know Ralph Ellison? By a former colleague who could not earn his PhD degree in English. Just how were you able to get your PhD degree in English? By a so-called friend. Just how did you get hired as a full professor with tenure at State University of New York at Albany? By a dear relative. Just how were you able to publish so many books? By a cousin. Just how were you able to attend your mother's funeral at a time conflicting with your wife's major surgery and succeed in doing both? By another poet. Just how did you get invited to read your poetry in Greece? By a fraternity brother. Just how have you been able to forgive your enemies, love God, and obey his commandments before knocking the hell out of somebody? interesting questions. I mean, don't you think those questions were condescending? How do you? All right. I just talk to God about it at night. Forgive the Lord, but they know not what they do. Yes. The last one is this one. I always read this one last. The country preacher spoke. Eternal God, we come this morning with bowed heads and humble hearts. We thank you for sparing us another day by letting your angels watch over our bedside while we slumbered and slept. We come to you without any form of fashion, just as we are, without one plea. You blessed us when we didn't deserve it, and when we traveled down the road of sin, you snatched us and made us taste of the blood of thy lamb. This morning, touch every human heart, transform tears into heaven showers for the salvation of the sinful souls. Yes, sir. Remember the sick and the afflicted, the heavy laden, open windows of thy heavenly home, and let perpetual light shine on them in the midnight hour. When we have done all that we can do down here, take us into thy kingdom, where the sun never sets and where there's no more bigotry, hypocrisy, backbiting, no more weeping and a wailing. But before thy throne, where you will wipe away our tears, where we can see our mothers, where in their city, where the streets are paved in gold and adorned with every jewel, where we can see Jesus sitting on the throne of glory. When we get home, whoa, when we get home, when we get home, that's not bosom, praise you forever. Amen. Thank you, sir. Thank you all so much.
It just happened. I left this behind in case anybody wanted to. It's a listing of your books from Amazon. So
Thank you.
he didn't know I did that.
If I may, Dr. Slade,
Yes.
talk about giving you flowers while you live. I want to thank you. Thank you for what you just gave to us. This gift of your scholarship, this gift of your, analysis, this gift of your talent. University at Albany has been blessed to have had you on its faculty for the 55, for the years that you were teaching here. I want to thank you for the students you inspired, the scholars that you made. I want to thank you for your words. I want to thank you for all that you shared with us today. This was a real treat for me personally to have been able to sit here and listen to you.
Thank you. so
Thank you,
much.
Dr.
Amen.
Thank you. Yes, sir.
I think one of the things I appreciated most today is, as someone who is a singer myself, the lyrical, musical quality, which you don't really get just reading on the page, but actually watching and listening to you, especially on that last poem, the feeling that you're trying to communicate, the richness of that feeling is enhanced dramatically by the way in which you say it and the voice you use, and not simply the words on the page.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you so much.
And thank you. Our next and final speaker of the spring semester will be Dr. Cecilia Levy,
Ignorant.
an associate professor of physics. Next Monday, May the 5th, the topic is a breakthrough technology for dark matter and neutrinos.
Curious.
I'm sorry, we do over and over again, I know the same old topic.
The other one.
Classes not for the
The
rest
poem
of
you
us.
read from here.
Luz
by the
Zeppelin,
abortion.
or LZ, is the most sensitive dark matter detector in the world.
Let's look it up.
And its operation is a collaboration among scores of international scientists from 38
Describing the
institutions.
Yeah.
Dr. Lee Leary, Dr. Levy, together with co-principal investigator Matthew Suzdakis,
Yeah.
has led a team of postdoctoral researchers and PhD graduate students at UAlbany since 2017,
Excellent. Okay, thank you.
contributing to the ongoing effort to directly discover dark matter, an elusive particle which makes up 25% of the universe. It'll be a fascinating look into this cutting edge research. A note, we will not be able to record this presentation, so be sure to mark your calendars and join us here in person next Monday at 1:30. And it will also be a unique opportunity to wish our amalgamation of sturdy but certainly not lush chairs farewell in favor of new, more comfortable seating. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Scott.
That's gonna be, that'll be the presentation wall.
What's wrong with the computer? There's so much.
Everyone who shows up late.
You are hard
has to walk.